That was loud. Good evening and welcome to the May 18th regular board meeting. Mr. Gooding, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Here.
Mrs. Mooring?
Here.
Mrs. Coates? Mrs. Horn?
Here.
Mr. Manley?
And if you all please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Is there a motion to approve minutes from the April 6th workshop meeting, the April 18th Finance and Facility Committee meeting, the April 20th regular board meeting, and the April 26th special board meeting?
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Manley. Is there a second? Thanks, Mrs. Horn. Any corrections to the minutes at all? Okay, Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley? Motion carried.
We are on the school and community reports and presentations part of the agenda. And first, it looks like we've got our student council president, Blake Briel. Before you speak, Blake, we have a gift for you.
Huh?
You don't have to open it.
You didn't have to do that. I just come up here and talk about prom or something every day.
Thank
Do you want me to open it now or no?
No, you don't need to. Well, you can open it later.
Okay.
I'll get back on the microphone.
Thank
so I can
you.
be heard, but we just want to thank you for spending every month with us over the past year. We have all really enjoyed getting to know you. We know that, especially as a high school senior and with all of the activities that you are a part of, that you are incredibly busy, and for you to, I don't think you've ever missed a meeting. In fact, I think you have been here even at times that you didn't necessarily need to be here. And not only have you been at the meetings, but you've sat through the entirety of the meetings, which is a big commitment of time on your part. We appreciate it very much. Like I said, we have enjoyed getting to know you very much. And I think we all knew from the first moment that we met you during superintendent interviews that it was not going to be something that you took lightly. You clearly are someone who really takes your responsibilities very seriously. So we just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. That means a lot to me. Yeah, I actually enjoy coming to these, even when I have other things going on or have whatever craziness is in my life. I always made it a point to sit through these. I do remember the one in December I originally wasn't able to go to, but I moved some stuff around and I was, so then I could go to every single one throughout the year, and so I'm happy I was able to do that. So today, really, I just wanted to come up and just talk a little more informally because it's the end of the year. I really don't have a whole lot to report. We finished prom. Prom was a super big success at the convention center downtown. I had an absolutely wonderful night, and so did everyone else I talked to. I was very, very worried going into this year with prom and homecoming and Gahanathon and just everything else that student council does specifically, because with COVID, there was really no precedent for how to do anything or what there was to do, or even, like I said, just what these events were and what we wanted them to look like. So I didn't know how participation was going to be, and I didn't know how it was going to be run, and so I was very, very happy to see the student body kind of come together and just enjoy themselves this year. Now, that was a big thing that I really, really was happy I accomplished this year, was just making all of that established again, and so I can pass it on to the next person. So speaking of which, I'm happy to announce that as of this Monday, we did officer elections for next year, and I just let everyone student council know about 3-4 hours ago that the president for next year will be Dylan Raymond. He was at, I believe it was either the last board meeting or the one before, and the vice president will be Issa Rivera, who is also here. So you will be seeing their faces around, and hopefully I can pass the torch to them and they can do a wonderful job. Throughout the year, I always talked about how I really wanted all the students in Gahanna to kind of find their pride and find their family here in Gahanna, whether it's sports, clubs, music, anything that might be. And I feel like I did as much as I possibly could in order to further that goal. I started my own club. I supported friends who started their clubs. I started club fairs in the gym, and just trying to did anything that I could for just get that publicity out and have everybody become as involved as possible. And I really saw this year, more than any other year I've been in high school, there's a true feeling of community and a lot of the people that I talked to and a lot of the groups that I was a part of, and I really, really appreciated that. Finally, the last thing I wanted to say was just thank you to all of you. You heard my little spiel last time because I thought that was my last time here because of a certain someone, but I'm back, so.
Hear about it.
Well, you just outed yourself. I didn't say anything. But yeah, just thank every single one of you who's been super supportive in anything that I've tried to tackle this year. I'm a very big idea person, and so the follow through is not always there where I just want to just do everything, but I really felt like I got to do a lot this year, and that was a large part because of the support from you all sitting here and the support from everyone at school and in the community. And so I'm very, very grateful for just all of Gahanna and like helping me with everything I wanted to do and helping me get here today. So I'll still be around. I'll come around whenever I'm available, and so don't be a stranger, and thank you all for not only being here for me, but being like good friends that I could talk to. So thank you. And
Blake,
thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here even on your very last day of school at Gahanna Lincoln High School. Thanks. Yep.
Hey, Blake. I just want to say what a pleasure it's been. From your first speech, talking about your vision, community, and everything, the morale that you have on your team that was really apparent and visible. You raised a lot of money, but more important, you showed like pulling it together, and you had a great time in doing it, so it was great. I think you're amazing.
Thank you. Okay. Unless anybody has anything. Yes. Okay. I am going to move on to Gahanna Jefferson Education Association. Mary Beth Powell is here this evening.
Hello. I'm Mary Beth. I teach over at Chapel Field. I sound way worse than I am. It's just allergies, so bear with me on that. So I'm going to first start with GJEA news, and then I'll talk about Chapel Field. So GJEA held its annual awards banquet last Thursday, May 11th. The event is held at the Airport Marriott and made possible by the OEA grant. At the event, we honored our GJEA Friend of Education and Hall of Fame recipients, Karen Wester and Kevin Sheets. We also awarded 3 scholarships to graduating seniors or current college students who are studying to be teachers. We are excited to have awarded Bella Davis, whose mom is a teacher at Lincoln, Reagan Peterson, and Philip Barton. Most importantly, we honored our members in attendance who will be retiring this year. We wish all the retiring members the best of luck as they transition into their very well-deserved next phase of life. Additionally, we would like to personally extend a welcome to the Board of Education and Dr. Deagle to attend next year's GJEA award ceremony. It is a very lovely evening, and it's a lot of fun. So we hope that you can attend next year. We wanted to send a warm thanks to all of our GJEA OPAS unions for all their work you do each and every day. We are proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with you in solidarity, but more importantly, we are thankful we get to work with all of you. We can't say enough about the classified staff that make our jobs easier and better each and every day. And I can personally say that to my wonderful person standing over there, Mal. So thank you. That makes Chapel Field shine every single day in more ways than one. We Want to thank the district for meeting with the elementary staff to discuss possible revisions and updates to our elementary report cards. We appreciate being heard and seen to discuss ways to make this feedback tool better for students and for families and staff. And personally, as an elementary teacher, I thank you for making this process hopefully a little easier and not as many hours as it has been in the past. Finally, we want to send a huge shout out to the Middle School West staff and bus drivers who acted with class, grace, and calm during a scary bus accident on Wednesday. Our members had nothing but amazing things to say about the bus drivers, the actions of the GJA members is representative of the amazing people who work for this district. And then moving on to Chapel Field news. We are having an exciting end of the year. We had a very successful family night with our art show, music, and food trucks. Lots of dancing going on, and our third graders also did town, and they raised money they did entrepreneur, came up with ideas to sell, and they made over $2,000 at that event, and they were used part of the proceeds to go to COSI yesterday for that. We also have had many classes taking advantage of this weather and taking walking field trips. So I have the ability from Chapel Field to be able to walk down to Creekside. Some of the third grade classes went to McDonald's, so being able to, the second grade classes went to Creekside and did a tree book and looked at the different trees down there yesterday. And then our fifth graders are excited about their big Kings Island trip tomorrow. So that is tomorrow to Kings Island. So they're very excited about that. We did a volunteer breakfast this morning for our PTA and the rest of the volunteers at our school that have made working easier for us teachers with making copies and things like that. So we wanted to thank them. So we had a breakfast this morning. We also had our field day last week and our carnival. Unfortunately, the weather didn't play the best for the carnival, but we made the best of it. And ending next week with a fitness walkathon with Kona Ice, and then a assembly to celebrate Mr. G, our beloved PE gym teacher who is retiring, and he will definitely be missed. So thank you.
Next, from OPSI Local 399, Mal Miller.
Hello. Well, first off, I want to say thank you, Blake, for all the wonderful time I got to spend with him. It's not really a whole lot for me to talk about, but just to, kind of recap, Local 399, custodial and maintenance. At the beginning of every year, we hit the ground running. Everything's coming at us fast. Teachers need this, buildings need fixed, and we're just kind of sporadic, here and there, picking up the paces. And then at some point in the middle of the year, it just gets kind of calm. And then everybody knows what happens at the end. There's just event after event, broken items after broken items. And if we're not cleaning it, somebody else is fixing it. And that's just the nature of us. But within all of that, I just really want to take a moment to thank you all for the seat at the table. We finally feel with this administration that you've, opened up the doors, bi-monthly meetings with everybody, pick up the phone, call anybody, cell phone, email, talk, transparency. And that's what we've got. And that's what we absolutely love. And that's what we always wanted. But the same thing as everybody else is thinking, it's almost over. Not that it's bad, but we all push ourselves. Even when we're at home, we push ourselves. So get to sit back, spend some time with the family, rejuvenate mind, body, spirit, and get ready to do it again. Learn something from the previous year, add it to the new year, and hopefully we can make a difference in somebody's lives. Thank you very much.
Every day you make a difference in lots of somebody's lives. All of you. Thank you. And next from OPSI Local 249, Jerry Moore.
Good evening. So I think I stood here last month and said when things go well, transportation is boring. And so it has been anything but a boring week in transportation. It's been a rough ride this week, but we're gonna weather the storm. We're gonna be fine. I want to mirror the words of Mal and thank you for inviting us to the table. It's been a privilege, and I've enjoyed being here, and just to have a seat, and never expecting to get everything that I asked for, but I got a chance to say it, and that's all we really wanted was that opportunity. Our new supervisor is in place. That's going very well. Very positive, very upbeat. So far, so good, and I don't expect that is going to change. So that's been good. I want to let you know that our year-end party is next Tuesday. You all are invited. I think I want to say noon at the bus compound. And we only have one retiree that I am aware of. I expect there will be a couple more. Our group's kind of private about what they're doing. They don't like to let anybody know. They just don't show back up next year, and you're like, oh, they retired. I get it. This retiree is going to hit me personally pretty hard. Good friend of mine. Only bus driver she's ever known. Really tried to get him to say, come on, one more year, Marvin. But he says it's time, so I'm going to respect that. But good bus driver, way better person. So hard to replace that. But we'll find somebody. We'll find somebody for bus 15 for you. Okay. I wanted to touch briefly on everybody's counting down the days. You know, everybody will show up tomorrow and go, this is 4, now there's 3. But the reality for us is summer is busy. We'll take a break of a week or so, and we start right into Journey for Learning. There are approximately 52 positions that we will fill over the month-long Journey to Learning. So we have 52 routes that we will be driving over that month. There are already 87 unique field trips over the summer that will tie up 160 school buses. Some of those trips are multiple that take more than one bus. So, but there's and that number will probably grow. There are a handful of us going to be going to in-service training over the summer. That's to get our keep our bus driver license. We have to recert every 6 years, and for a handful of us, it's time. We will be back at the annual in-service meeting July 25th. And as part of that, we will rebid our routes again. There's a little minor middle school redistricting piece, but that triggers a rebid for us. So we will be doing that again. Our admin has already started on routing for next year. So the summer's nice, and the pace does slow down, but it's busy. So I look forward to being back, seeing you again here next year. Enjoy your time off over the summer. You probably don't get much time off either, but the pace hopefully will at least slow down some. So thank you again, and we'll see you next school year.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Take the hand and get out of here while you can. Next is Ariana Kelawala from Educating for Ohio's Future campaign.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Before I introduce myself and why I'm here today, I just wanted to say a quick thank you to Board President Pickle Antonio and Member Manley. Thanks for encouraging me to be here. Your support means a lot to me. Okay, and thank you all for having me today. My name is Ariana Kelawala, and I graduated from Gehanna Lincoln in 2021. I'm now a rising junior at Ohio State, where I study political science and women's gender and sexuality studies. I went to Gehanna Lincoln schools from 1st grade through 12th grade, so I was here a while. And while at school at Gehanna, I was part of both choir and band from 6th through 12th grade. I played middle school tennis with Mr. Manley's daughter. I did DECA with Mrs. Coates' daughter. I founded and led the March for Our Lives Club. I participated in National Honor Society, Chinese Honor Society. I was a valedictorian. As you can see, I was pretty involved here at my time at Gehanna, and I absolutely loved my time at Gehanna. My accomplishments at Gehanna are a testament to the incredible teachers and students that I got to be around. I was fortunate to really be guided and mentored by so many wonderful people while I was here. I hope you can see I do 100% love this school with my whole heart. My sister goes here now, and it's why I'm here tonight and why I immersed myself in literally everything I possibly could when I was here. I want to share that despite my amazing teachers and my loving friends during my time at Gehanna, I faced microaggressions and implicit bias. I had kids ask me if I spoke Indian. My parents are immigrants from India, but Indian is not a language. I had people, I'm so sorry. People ask me where I came from. That's not really a question that students who are white often get asked, and that's just amongst some others. When I was in elementary school, when we would talk about Indians in school, I had a hard time distinguishing when they would talk about Indians. I'd be like, oh, that's like where my family comes from. But they would be talking about Native American communities. So it was a lot for a kid to like be asked all these questions and have to provide answers about where do you come from. And when you say Indians, you're Indian, like people don't know what that means. So yeah, there was just a lot of like misunderstanding around my identity, and I, as a student, had to like kind of carry the burden of that. Overall, my time at Gehanna was wonderful, but I want to explain that like not every kid had the same amazing teachers and students around them that I was fortunate enough to have, and some of them in other schools face more overt racism and bullying because of the places they come from, and now we have the opportunity to do something about it. Today I'm here representing the campaign Educating for Ohio's Future, which is a campaign that just recently introduced House Bill 171 to the Ohio legislature. This bill would update the state's model curriculum to include the age and grade appropriate instruction in the migration journeys, experiences, and societal contributions of a range of communities that already call Ohio and the United States home, including all of the following: African American communities, Asian and Pacific Islander communities, Arab, African, and North African immigrant and asylee communities, Appalachian communities, Jewish communities, Latin American communities, and Native American communities. Updating the model curriculum with the histories of these communities could have really significant impacts to the lives of students across Ohio. An updated model curriculum would provide rich, engaging options for teaching social studies in Ohio. It will equip teachers with well-developed activities and lessons that can support and develop respect for students in our classrooms who come from different histories than our own. Based upon state law, this bill would not mandate or impose anything on local school districts, which already make their own choices about which curriculum to use. Rather, this bill would update the model curriculum to provide a guidepost for Ohio school districts and educators who seek to engage Ohio's students on the histories of communities that call Ohio home. A 2020 study from the National Education Association shows us that students of color, in particular, who participated in courses that reflected different identities, cultures, and backgrounds, have a greater sense of belonging and sense of self. And we know students are also more engaged when they see their communities reflected in the classroom. We want students to be excited about a topic that they relate to. We want to see their eyes light up when they find a book that they're interested in. It's important that our students can connect to the information that they're learning in school. I don't have to tell you, any of you, about the importance of education and the role that it plays in students' lives. You all know how impactful a positive educational experience can be. Education is the first step to building kinder adults by teaching empathy and understanding of new and different knowledge and people of different backgrounds. Our bill seeks to foster and support empathy by reflecting all of Ohio's communities, ensuring our students truly feel seen in their classrooms statewide. Gahanna has a growingly diverse school district with large populations from the Hispanic, Somali, and Nepali communities, amongst others. At Gahanna, I know our students, staff, and board are all passionate about making sure every student receives a high-quality education that will prepare them for a future. And the future of America is growingly diverse and growingly culturally aware, and this curriculum is going to build the skills in students from a really young age to enter that world. HB 171 is just one step in this process. If my teachers had taught about the history of India or the contributions of immigrants like my parents, when kids asked me about my identity, I would have had an easier time explaining, and some of the negative interactions that happened because of my identity might never have occurred. When a teacher explains to a student in a classroom, this is what the Indian community contributed to our state, I have ability to say, that's where I come from. So when students ask, I can refer to something that's actually being taught in our classrooms, right? It takes some of the burden off of our students to do that explanation. I know that HB 171 is right for students, teachers, and parents. We have support from a large coalition of organizations, including the Ohio Education Association and Ohio Federation of Teachers, amongst many, many others. Our students deserve to be seen, heard, and represented in their classrooms. Today, I'm asking you to pass a resolution in favor of House Bill 171, and by doing that, you're signaling to our community and to other communities around the state that Gahanna is a place that values their students and values the contributions of our many communities. And I hope with that in mind, you vote in favor of a resolution to support House Bill 171. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Ariana. I have a question, but I'm going to ask my colleagues first if they have any questions. Anybody have questions for Ariana? Okay, then I'll ask mine. Well, then I have two. The first question that I have, I guess, could you talk a little bit about maybe the typical process for updating model curriculum, and maybe talk about why this route was chosen? Is it different? Is it typical? Just if you could explain that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the model curriculum process is a little complicated, but basically, we're not, first of all, I want to say in our bill, we're not changing any of the existing processes that exist to update the model curriculum. The bill simply requests that when the model curriculum is updated, we set a deadline of beginning the implementation by July 1st of 2024 to give all the folks that do that some time. And that's just the beginning, so we're not requiring them to have it done by a certain time or anything like that. We're just saying when they do periodically update this process, we are asking that all of these histories be included in that process. But to answer your question, so model curriculum right now is reviewed and kind of handled by both the Ohio Department of Education and the State Board of Education. So those are kind of the two entities that house that. Specifically, communities, specifically like OEA and OFT, the teachers unions kind of have this ability to nominate folks to committees that write the curriculum each year, the model curriculum. And that model curriculum is then subject to public approval and like public comment, so people can voice their opinions on it, things like that. And after the model curriculum is written by those folks, it's referred then to the State Board of Education, which then passes it into like the actual final stages. So our bill keeps all of that intact. We're just asking them to include these specific things. That's the typical way everything is updated.
Appreciate that explanation. And then the last question that I have for you is, I mean, I think you kind of explained it, but can you, I guess, explicitly answer the question of whether updating model curriculum in this way, is that a cost to any local district?
Yeah, no. So this isn't going to be at the cost to any local districts. So that's great. And yeah, it's just going to be part of the periodic model review process that already occurs and already has the funding like attached to it. So no, it won't cost the districts anything. So when you pass a resolution, you're not committing to any financial anything.
Appreciate that. Appreciate the presentation. And it looks like Mr. Manley now has a question.
Not really a question. I want to thank you for your presentation, and I applaud you for your energy and, you know, sharing your personal story and your experience is definitely illuminating and shines a light where it needs to be, in my opinion. And, you know, have great respect for you and everything you said. I really love that you want to like make a difference, and like you're voicing what you see will help other students. And I just really thank you for speaking up. Great presentation.
Thank you so much for that. That means a lot.
Any other questions? Okay, just so you know, when we get into the legislative update portion of the agenda, we'll probably have some discussion among ourselves about next steps. I think you told me you have another meeting this evening, so I will follow up and let you know, but appreciate your being here. We are very proud of you. I guess we can claim some, I think. Not us personally, but the district is very proud to have you as a graduate of the district, to be a junior in college and to already have figured out how the legislative process works and how things work at the State Board of Education, and not just figure those things out, but figure out a way to impact those processes. That's a lot, even for a lot of adults. So we are very proud of everything that you have accomplished and everything that we know you will continue to accomplish. Thank you for coming here tonight, too.
Thank you so much for hearing me out. And yeah, I'll stick around for a few more minutes since my meeting is until 8. But yeah, I really appreciate all of you. My work really is a testament to Gehanna, and I had the most amazing teachers here. I still talk to a lot of them. They really are the reason that I'm here doing all of this, and I just care so much about this district, which is why I'm here tonight. But yeah, thank you all again.
Okay, we are to the board reports section of the agenda. And it looks like we've got a report out from Finance and Facility Committee first from Mrs. Mooring.
And we met on Tuesday, May 16th, a couple days ago. And we had 4 pieces of business on our agenda. The first, as always, was a Phase 2 construction update. We have 5 projects going on simultaneously, so it's good to have a monthly report where all of those are both in physical development and monetary spending. So that was followed by our treasurer reviewing our monthly and year-to-date financials. And as he will share, we are doing really well, ahead in revenue and under in spending. So proud of the district for that. Then we went into the 5-year forecast discussion. We had a presentation at our April Finance and Facilities meeting where we did a deep dive, and then board members were asked to submit questions. We reviewed those questions and some of the answers on Tuesday night and had a little bit further discussion. So that was a robust discussion. And then our COO gave us a review of all of the physical building projects that will be going, well, I guess there's parking lots too. So projects that will be happening this summer funded through the permanent improvement levy that was passed in 2015 and provides about $3.3 million a year for us to do capital improvements. So he reviewed that with us as our last item of business. And that's all.
Mrs. Mooring. Next, it looks like I have a legislative update. And if you will bear with me, I am going to do my best to kind of tie up loose ends on a lot of bills that are out there. So I'm going to start with the budget because that is the number one priority of the legislature right now. And just briefly, where that is in the process again right now is that it has passed out of the House. It is proceeding through the Senate. The thing that I wanted to just draw our attention to are some comments that were made by Senate President Matt Huffman yesterday. He was speaking to the NFIB yesterday. I think both he and Speaker Stevens were speaking to NFIB yesterday. And there was a comment that Senate President Huffman made where he told them that public school enrollment has decreased, and he said that the Fair School Funding Plan does not address the statewide decrease in public school enrollment. He also told the NFIB group that if we move forward with the Fair School Funding Plan and a recession were to hit the state, the burden for, he commented something along the lines of, we're not going to cut that funding then from the public schools, and so the burden for that cost will fall on NFIB members, so they have to stop it now. I am just making us aware of those comments because as we all remember, when the budget passed through the Ohio House, we were all a little bit relieved because the House made a decision to update the inputs for the Fair School Funding Plan to the current years and to move forward with the phase-in of that. And so, as I've said before, we don't know at this point what the Senate will do, but those comments, I think we just need to be aware that nothing is a done deal at this point. So I just want us to continue, I guess, to, Mrs. Mooring, did you have a question? Oh, I'm sorry. The National Federation of Independent Businesses. So it is the I should have said that. It's the organization that represents smaller businesses in the state of Ohio, and this was not the national group. There is an Ohio chapter of the NFIB. Sorry, I should have not just used an acronym. So I don't know. I mean, those comments were reported, so I haven't seen anything. Like I wasn't at that meeting. I didn't hear those comments firsthand, but I am just literally reading what's been reported that he said at that meeting. Okay, so House Bill 117, that is the piece of legislation that would be the elimination of retention under the third grade reading guarantee. That bill passed out of the House Primary and Secondary Education Committee on May 9th. It has not yet gone to the House floor for a vote, and then it hasn't been in the Senate at all at this point. Senate Bill 49, that is a piece of legislation that would require each public school to adopt a policy that reasonably accommodates sincerely held religious beliefs and practices of students and includes 3 excused absence days for religious expression. That bill passed out of the Senate and has been referred to the Ohio House Primary and Secondary Committee, but there have not yet been any hearings in that committee on that bill. I'm going to kind of fly through these, and then if we want to have any conversation about any of them when we're done. Senate Bill 1 is the restructure of the Ohio Department of Education and State Board of Education. That bill passed out of the Ohio Senate and is currently in the House Economic and Workforce Development Committee, where so far there have been 4 hearings. I also want to, well, let me say this first. House Bill 12 is the House version of that legislation. So both the House and the Senate introduced kind of companion bills. House Bill 12 is currently in the House Primary and Secondary Education Committee and has had 5 hearings there. And then I'll note now the State Board of Education, when they met in May, they passed a resolution to ask the Ohio Attorney General for a formal opinion about whether either of those pieces of legislation is in conflict with the Ohio Constitution. The Ohio Attorney General has not yet responded to that request. Next, Senate Bill 11, which is a piece of legislation that would expand eligibility for EdChoice vouchers to all students. That bill is currently in the Senate Education Committee and has had 3 hearings. And then I guess not the exact same piece of legislation, but in the House, House Bill 11 would establish the Backpack Scholarship Program. It's the House's version of expanding the voucher program. That is currently in the House Primary and Secondary Committee and has so far had 3 hearings. That I should also say that the expectation with both Senate Bill 11 and House Bill 11 is that whatever the legislature intends to do with vouchers is probably going to reside in the state budget. And where that stands right now, at least in the House version, is that they, I think the governor had recommended expansion of EdChoice vouchers to 250% of the federal poverty level. I believe the House version has it expanded to 450%. But that's where those things are. Next is House Bill 1, which is a piece of legislation that would modify the law regarding property tax and income tax rate. That is currently in the House Ways and Means Committee. It has had 7 hearings. There's not another hearing scheduled. So I don't even know if they're planning to vote it out. I believe that's another one that they're planning to fold into the budget. Whatever they do with taxes, it will be addressed in the budget bill, which is House Bill 33. I never gave the bill number, sorry. Next, House Bill 6 is a piece of legislation that would prohibit a school district from knowingly permitting a student who was identified as a male at birth from participating on a team designated as a, quote, girls team, regardless of OSHAA policy. That piece of legislation passed out of the House Higher Education Committee on May 10th. And it has not yet gone to the House floor. And it doesn't exist in the Senate right now, but if it goes to the House floor and is passed on the House floor, then it would go to the Senate. House Bill 8 is a piece of legislation that would require public schools to adopt a policy on parental notification on student health and well-being and instructional materials with sexually explicit content. And I will note that that piece of legislation was amended on April 18th. Although it's weird that you can't find it online except in the committee documents themselves. But on April 18th, the committee adopted an amendment that would actually remove discretion for school personnel to withhold information even if the school personnel believes that that information would result in abuse of the child. That piece of legislation is in the House Primary and Secondary Committee and has had 4 hearings. 3 more, sorry. Senate Bill 17, that is a piece of legislation that would require the State Board of Education to incorporate academic concepts of free market capitalism into the standards and model curriculum for financial literacy and entrepreneurship for grades 9 through 12. That legislation passed out of the Senate and is now in the House Primary and Secondary Committee. It has had one hearing so far there. And you know what? I'm not sorry. I'm sorry that we have all of these pieces of legislation that are being, I'm not personally sorry, but I wish that all of this legislation wasn't going on. House Bill 103 is a piece of legislation that would establish the Ohio Social Studies Standards Task Force to develop new social studies academic standards based on the American Birthright curriculum. If you're interested in what the American Birthright curriculum is, you can look it up. They have a website. Based on the testimony that has been provided so far, there are no states that have adopted the American Birthright curriculum. There is one public school district somewhere that has adopted that curriculum. I don't remember where it is, but no states have adopted that model curriculum at this point. That bill is currently in the House Primary and Secondary Committee. It has had 3 hearings. My days are a little off, but sometime this week, maybe yesterday, maybe the day before, I think it was Tuesday actually, opposition testimony was given, and there were a whole lot of, as you might imagine, a whole lot of social studies teachers from around the state of Ohio there to testify in opposition, along with some others. And I believe maybe even Ariana was there testifying in opposition. I can't remember. And then the last one is House Bill 171 that Ariana mentioned having worked on, actually was introduced by our state representative, Mary Lightbody. It was introduced on May 10th. It has not yet been referred to committee. And that is, that's the update. I guess the question to all of us is, do we want to consider, I don't have any draft resolutions in front of us today to consider, but I guess the question is, do we want to consider any resolutions? One, I guess specifically, there was a request made of us to consider a resolution in support of House Bill 171. Is there anything else that we want to consider a resolution in support of or in opposition to? And then if so, is there anybody who wants to volunteer to help work on writing those resolutions so that we can vote on them? I think we have a workshop meeting. We could vote on them, or the next June board meeting.
Read through the legislation yet, so I'm not prepared to make any.
And we can discuss it at the workshop meeting. We can revisit that. I think House Bill 17, all of the legislation, if you have any difficulty finding it, just let me know and I can help find it. Not the actual bills. If you want to read the actual bill text, I can help get you to the right place. 171 is attached to our agenda, but the other ones aren't. But did you want to say something, Mr. Manley?
So I think it is overwhelming, or I've been overwhelmed by a lot of this, and I've heard from other people who are overwhelmed. A good thing to report is that they have had record number of testimony at the State House, and also the State Board of Ed had similar experience. They hadn't seen that many people show up to give testimony in opposition to some of these bills and resolutions. And so that's, across the board a spectrum of people that are getting engaged, including students, parents, community members, professionals, and nonprofits that specialize. And I think that House Bill 8 is really important, and the wording of it is vague, and it's not affirming for our staff, and we have parents have rights here, and so I think that's a important bill to look at. And also 103, I heard some of that testimony, and that's the discussion at the State House was really intense. That was Tuesday the 9th, and a lot of the representatives asked questions, so the engagement was pretty thought-provoking, I'd say. And so those are my thoughts. 151 too, but really 103 and 8. House Bill 6, I don't know if it's going to go anywhere.
Let us, if we could, I guess, make a note to that is that too soon, do you think, to have the discussion at our workshop meeting? Okay. Okay. Yeah, yeah. And if you haven't, like I said, if you have any trouble finding them, I would definitely say that, yes, you should look at the actual bill. But the Legislative Service Commission, which is a nonpartisan, non-affiliated with, it's just a government entity that works for the legislature. They provide a bill analysis, and that's the best place to really get an understanding of what the legislation does. There's also usually a fiscal impact analysis for every piece of legislation. So, yep.
And House Bill 6, of course, it's in the news every day. I think we should talk about that. Students have rights, and it's pretty important.
Okay, so we'll talk about it again at workshop meeting. Just in general, we'll have a conversation about whether or not we want to consider resolutions for any of the pieces of legislation. So it'll just be, we won't vote on any resolutions that night, but we'll just have an open conversation about whether we want to consider doing any resolutions. Next, we've got an update from Eastland Fairfield Career Center. Mr. Manley.
Hello, everybody. And so Eastland Fairfield, coming on the end of the school year, they announced that they're going to have 2 new programs starting. That's going to be robotics and LPN, the licensed practical nurse. And so they're excited about that. They had great success with the last 2 new programs that were the sports athletic training program that we are participating in. So the interest in that was really amazing, and we saw presentation about that. Then also the firefighters, and everyone loves firefighters. So also wanted to say that the culinary department has been extremely successful. You've heard me talking about them. They went to state, and 16 of the 19 categories, they placed, and 4 students are going to nationals. So we're excited about that. Lastly, I just want to say that we voted, and we're proud to announce that Shelley Groves is going to be the new superintendent. And Shelley has been serving students and staff for 25 years. She has been the assistant superintendent there for 6 years. She was previously the director and principal at Fairfield for 6 years. And she has a strong relationship with the 16 districts that's been going on for 8 years. So I just want to say briefly, she successfully took on new areas of responsibility. She took on professional development on her own, curriculum revision, professional development with the districts. So bottom line is she was best suited for the path of growth, continuing the directional goals set with the stakeholders, staff, and community, and to continue the strategic plan. So she also presented a 100-day plan, and she had some really tangible specifics in mind that was exciting to see and hear about. So she knows, I've been told, Eastland Fairfield like no one else. That's my report.
Thanks, Mr. Manley. Sure.
Do you know where the robotics and the LPN programs are going to be housed?
No, I don't. I didn't get that specifics, but it's possibly Eastland. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll find out though. Sure.
And next, we've got a report from Gahanna Jefferson Education Foundation that I think Mr. Manley is going to give for Mrs. Coates.
All right, so we're missing Mrs. Coates. All right, so scholarships, Gahanna Jefferson Education Foundation is privileged to administer a number of scholarships on behalf of several generous donors that want to support Gahanna students move on to the next level of education. A few of our scholarships are awards that are renewed for up to 4 years. This year, GJPS has awarded over $100,000 in scholarships to 20 graduating seniors. I guess I read that right, yeah. As well as 15 alumni who are pursuing college degrees and various certifications. If you know of anyone who's interested in being a scholarship mentor, please contact us. And then for Gear Gardens, the students have planted 200 Christmas trees and will be planting potatoes. We will be installing a shed for equipment storage and working on plans for a pole barn and workshop buildings. And then alumni. There are alumni groups that are making plans for reunions and have reached out for help with planning. We would like to begin planning for the process of digital archiving the class composites that hang in the hallways and could use alumni volunteer support. And lastly, just want to say congratulations to the class of 2023. Thank you.
From you or from Kara or?
Oh, should I say? I should give her credit. That's Kara's report. I thought you said that.
You did. I'm
Oh,
just
all
teasing
right.
you.
Yeah, I deserve that.
Okay. Next, Mrs. Horn has 2 reports. One from Gahanna Parks and Recreation, and then she has a report from Insurance Committee. So I'll just turn it over to you for both of those.
Evening, everyone. Last week we met on Wednesday night with Gahanna Parks and Rec. So as the weather is getting nicer, the Parks and Rec are really gearing up for the summer. So a lot of excitement with getting the pools ready. The splash pad's already open. The summer camps are really filling up. Some are already maxed out at capacity. They are still looking to hire a lot of people. So if you know anybody that's looking for a summer job still, they will be very excited to have you. We also spend a lot of time talking about community and volunteers, and you know what has always made Gahanna great, in my opinion, is just the sense of community and people helping in a lot of different areas. And I think the one thing that really came out of our conversation was that with COVID, it really kind of stopped people from being out and volunteering. And, you know, we had a robust discussion about now we have to really make it a deliberate attempt to ask again, just to try to encourage community involvement, you know, whether that is, you know, seeking volunteers for the Blues Festival, Hops and Vine. We had a lot of great kudos to the high school students for helping at the farmers market and, you know, different things. And, you know, I encouraged all of them to reach out to administration now for next year, because there's always a lot of opportunities to get our students more involved, and they really enjoy it, but they just have to be asked. I mean, not a lot of high school students outside of Blake, you know, will put himself out there, you know, to really get involved. But if you ask them, you know, they really will. So, so I think that was a good thing that came out of the meeting, is just how they can get the students more involved as well as other community members. So that was the big issue. There's still a lot of work that's being done for at Academy Park. They're going to be putting that mountain bike trail through that, and they were unaware that Pelotonia actually is going to have a gravel ride this year at the end of September, which is brand new, and it's going to be, I think, more southern Ohio, maybe a little bit. But that's kind of an up and coming. So really, for Gahanna to be having a trail, it kind of fits in nicely. You'll continue to see that increasing. I think the desire for that to be, so that's progressing. And we're still working with them on the whole Link to Literacy program. So there'll be more of that at the board workshop on that piece. So that was really it for Parks and Rec. Any questions on that from anyone? Okay.
You mentioned Academy Park for the dirt bike trail. I thought it was going to be like on the west side of the creek, access from Woodside Green Park.
It's actually going to be
Might have been
in
moved.
between.
Oh, it's between.
It's in between.
Ah,
So they have it, and you can kind of see it if you go down Cherry Bottom. They have different things roped off. So they're still in the design phase with that, but it'll kind of be in between those two areas. Okay, so now on to the insurance committee. Met last Monday, and we're still kind of in the planning phases of what the balance of the year meetings are going to be, but I think we'll have some exciting news to share at board workshop. And that was really it.
Thanks, Mrs. Horn. We are on the public participation portion of the agenda. I just have one slip for public participation tonight. Is that right, Judy? Okay. And I should have said this at the beginning, but I'll say it now. Please don't try to adjust the microphone. I know it's really tempting to do it, but it's set up in a way that it shouldn't be adjusted. The public participation slip that I have is from Nick. Is it Redinger? I'm adding an N that's not there. Rediger, sorry. And I should say at the outset, the way that public participation works is it is a time that we set aside on the agenda for members of the public to address the board. It is not intended to be a dialogue. There may be follow-up that occurs as a result of something that you've said, but any follow-up would occur separate from the meeting. That's why we ask for contact information. And I will just remind you that you're addressing the board, so it's not an address to the public or to the video camera. It's an address to the board as a whole, not any one of us. And what else should I tell you? The way that time works is that it is set for 3 minutes. I don't remember how we've done this now because it's been a couple meetings since we've had public participation. You'll get a 1 minute warning, I think, or do we get the full 3 minutes?
We had it set up so it would be 3 minutes.
Okay.
And then if you extend that, then we have
Then you
two
have-
full minutes is how you had us set that up.
But there's no warning.
It'll flash on the
Okay,
screen.
so
when they get
you'll
down to-
see
I
the
think that-
timer counting down on the screen. It'll initially be set for 3 minutes. We've changed this a few times because there's been some confusion, I think, from people who are speaking, and it could also be that because we've changed it, what I've said doesn't match with what we've done, but we're trying. The timer is going to be set for 3 minutes. You should be able to see it. If you hit the end of 3 minutes, you are welcome to request an additional 2 minutes. I have never denied that additional 2 minutes unless you are repeating yourself. So, and I'm not intending to talk directly to you. Sorry, I'm talking to anybody. But that's the only slip I have. And then if there is an additional 2 minutes granted, the clock will be reset for 2 minutes and you'll be able to see that counting down. So with all that prelude, Nick, if you want to come up and address the board.
And we got rid of the audible sound on it, so it'll just.
Okay. Well, good evening. My name is Nick Rediger, and some of you know that I work at Blacklick Elementary and Lincoln Elementary as a school counselor there. I'm wrapping up my 4th year in Gahanna. I love my job here. I get to work as a true school counselor for students in 2 buildings, and I'm privileged to work in the school lives of almost 1,400 students each year. In my school counseling role, I work tirelessly to support the mental health and social emotional needs of our students through classroom guidance, groups, and individual support. At the district level, I've created our LGBTQIA+ employee group, and I continue to strive to build a greater sense of belonging for our students and staff. My ability to do this has been in large part to the leadership and guidance of Lisa Kelly. She's worked diligently to ensure Gahanna provides the most comprehensive mental health services to staff and students in Central Ohio. However, I'm saddened to learn that Lisa will not be returning next school year due to the fact that she's being asked to extend her contract days to a year-round schedule. I'm disappointed that our administration's not working to keep such a qualified and valued staff member in Gahanna. The extension of the mental health administrator's contract is not a healthy work-life balance. Mental health practitioners are frontline responders to heavy emotional draining work that requires breaks and the need for time away to prevent compassion fatigue and burnout. The message we as school staff here in Gahanna have received time and time again is that work-life balance is a priority to prevent the burnout that teachers are experiencing across our country, which is accounting for a teacher shortage. But the requirement of Lisa's position to be extended to the entire calendar year seems to negate the district's work-life balance sentiments and communicates that those ideals and messages from our administration are performative. I hear and understand there are concerns about administrative contracts needing to be uniform and equal. However, I feel like not examining certain contracts beyond very clear black and white rules is not best practice. In our post-pandemic world, flexibility and autonomy in working conditions have been explored and proven to be successful. That, compared with exceptional employee performance, should be an opportunity to explore gray between black and white rules, especially in Lisa's case. Lisa's an amazing advocate, supervisor, and visionary in the field of school mental health, and anyone who has seen the scope of her influence and work in our district knows that finding someone to replace her will be extremely difficult. Thank you for your time and consideration.
And like I said, that was the only slip I had. So we are going to move on to adoption of the agenda. Are there any recommended changes to tonight's agenda? Okay, is there a motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Thank you, Mrs. Mooring. Is there a second? Thank you, Mrs. Horn. We are on to the superintendent. Oh, no, we have to call the roll. I knew I was going to miss it at least once
gotcha.
tonight. Mr. Gooding, is there any discussion about that? Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Mooring? Mrs. Horn? Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle Antonio? Motion carried.
Thanks. Now we're on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Deagle.
Well, good evening, everyone. I just want to begin tonight by recognizing our teachers and our staff. May was Teacher and Staff Appreciation Month, and so we celebrated certainly for a week long, but we hope that we do that every single day with our teachers and staff. We are so appreciative of their commitment to our students and to our community, and I routinely see them promote excellence in learning in our classrooms each day, and I count them in daily in what I am grateful for as part of our team here at Gahanna Jefferson Schools. So thank you to our teachers, staff, and to our administrators as well. I do want to give you an update on the DECA International competition. Did we recognize them last month, was it? And we were sending them off to Florida in a few days, so they have returned from Florida, and we did quite well. Luke, Henry, and Drew, whose event was Business Services Research, they earned a first place for international. It was wonderful. Corinne and Sophia, in their event, Amazon Unreal Campaign Challenge, had second place. Jocelyn and Zhujing, Integrated Marketing Campaign, 5th place. Emily, Allie, and Lindsay with Hospitality Research earned a 6th place finish, and Corinne again and Sophia again in the category of buying and merchandising team decision making, 9th place. So proud of our DECA program and their wonderful advisor kit. I believe some of you had the good fortune of watching our musical this past week. I was proud to go on opening night before we went down to get Gavin from school, and I'll tell you what, it was incredibly impressive. This was my first musical here in Gahanna. Did you know that 116 students were involved in that musical? It was. And just all the way from the singing, the dancing, the pure exhaustion that they must have felt after performing in front of our 5th graders and then having 4 weekend shows. Amazing. Our students do the makeup, they do the costumes, the set design and construction. I mean, 2-story construction is quite a feat. It did make this superintendent just a tad nervous, but all went well. Strategic, yes, I happened to sit next to our wonderful high school principal, and she was looking at the same thing a few times. Strategic planning, we have begun our strategic planning process. You're going to hear me talk about this every month. Our firm Redcon came in to meet with several of our high school students, two groups of high school students this week in focus groups. She had wonderful visits. No one from our team was in those so that they could speak very candidly about what they love and would see opportunities for improvement and what they would like to see the aspirations be for the district. Our firm is creating our survey questions. Expect to see those out to our community, I would say probably in the next 2 weeks. So we will be sending those out to our community, then following up with some focus groups, and really hit the ground running on this in the fall. We've had many culture events around our district that I've had the good fortune to attend. Jill and I went to one of the Blacklick festivals that for the first time in 5 years, did they say, it did not rain, so they could be outside. So Jill and I attended hero presentations today at Middle School West as well. We got to hear our students in the 7th grade talk about who their heroes were, and there were no dry eyes. And made Jill and I wonder what our children would say about us. So I'm going to check on that. Spring athletics are still in. Unfortunately, our softball young ladies lost a heartbreaker to Newark. I am just really devastated for them. Boys lacrosse are in regionals tonight, so I'll look forward to getting an update from our AD when we're done. Baseball is in district semifinals on the 22nd. Boys and girls track district finals on the 20th. We look for a really long run for them. Oh, did you see what I did there, Mr. Manley? Boys tennis, Brandon Carpico is in district finals, which we were expecting he would be. He's fabulous, has been well covered in the dispatch, and that's on the 20th. So we are so proud of all of our athletes, middle school and high school, but our Lincoln athletes are really doing well this spring. I don't always make a good habit of doing this, but I like to change that. There's some general business of the board before you this evening that I just want to be sure to draw your attention to. There is a first read for a policy 8462. Mr. Manley, Mrs. Coates, and I review policies. This was one that was meant to be in the packet of policies that you had a first and second read, and it was inadvertently left off. I apologize for that. It's for your review this evening and approval next month. I am so proud to announce that so far for 2023 we have 588 graduates that you will be conferring at the ceremony a week from Saturday, and that is for your approval tonight as well. And I checked, your names are on there, so there was never a doubt, never a doubt. There is also an MOU here for OPSI. Just to, at one point, our 3 OPSI unions all had a combined COVID sick bank. It made sense for the unions, and we had no objection for them to divide those out appropriately. So that is for your approval. They all have passed through the OPSI locals and are just waiting for your approval. Cliff may speak to GMP 4.3, so I'll skip over that. The Licking County Educational Service Center contract is also on for your approval this evening. You know, I'm not sure because I don't have the history here whether you've seen that before. At its face value, we don't expect that to exceed $50,000, which is the typical threshold. But because it's kind of open-ended and we want to be able to get more seats for some of our students if we need them, we felt it was safe to just put it on the agenda. And that is my report. Thank you.
Dr. Deagle, did you have something? Oh, I thought, Mrs. Mooring, I thought you had a question. Sorry. I was reading your face wrong. Sorry. Next, we have a report from our treasurer, Mr. Gooding.
All right, thank you. I did want to highlight something else going on earlier this week. It was really close. On Monday, there was a town hall meeting hosted by Representative Lightbody, and at that meeting, our Franklin County Auditor, Michael Stenziano, was there to talk about the reappraisal process. Very informative, lots of good stuff there. We've got the presentation and some information. His staff is available, great stuff on their website that they have. We're going to work with the communications department to get some information out as we go through that process, but it is the reappraisal process and the triennial update every home values are updated every 3 years, so that's just part of that. But with everything that's been going on with the economy, I think Michael wants to get out there in front of folks so that they know early what's going to happen. So there will be more information coming out about that, but it's just a great opportunity to be part of that meeting and ask them some tough questions that we needed to when we needed some things clarified. So that was good. As Mrs. Mooring said, we had a great Finance and Facility Committee meeting. We reviewed all the Phase 2 construction processes, the updates. We've changed a little bit in our structure with the Phase 2 financial report. It's still part of our monthly financial report, but we're changing a report out on that to a quarterly basis as we get further into the projects. She also mentioned that it was the follow-up for the 5-year forecast presentation. It was initially presented in April, and then follow-up again on Tuesday night with some more information there. Obviously, having conversations about the reappraisal process that came up, so we just had some good in-depth conversation about assumptions because each and every day they continue to change. So we're looking at that piece. On the financial report, again, just echoing Daphne's comments, great report as usual. A boring report is a good report in our world. Revenue was up. We're trending up at this point through the end of April. Revenue was up 1.18% fiscal year to date, so we're spot on, right on track with where we want to be. 1% is a fantastic variance, so we're there. The expense side, we're trending 1.3% under, so revenue's up, expenses down. Overall cash balance was projected at that point to be up about $2.4 million. So things are really good on the finance side. Some things you'll have before you following my report is obviously the approval of the financial report. We have some adjustments in appropriations. Sorry, I'm pulling a screen up over here. I've got two screens going on, so just trying to figure out what those are. So we've got some appropriation adjustments in the PI fund for a debt payment that is coming up. For the interest piece of that, we've got an adjustment for a student managed activity fund for Lincoln Live. We have a district managed activity fund, an adjustment for trip meals for the middle school Washington, D.C. trip that's going on. An adjustment for auxiliary services funds to align with their cash balance for St. Matthew, and then an adjustment to reconciling ESSER funds, the carryover funds. We're making a correction there to get that reconciled as well. Then and now, there are two items on there for items that the then and now, I'll explain what that is. It's a high revised code, but it's purchases that were made before a PO was entered. So we're certifying that the money was available then when the obligation was made, and now, which is what you're approving. So we have two items there. Anything over $3,000, I don't have the authority to approve those, so that's why those come to the board. As always, this is the best part of it is thanking all of the supporters for their donations to the district for a lot of programs, whether it is a monetary item or, for example, we put one on here that the Gear students made birthday cards. So there was no monetary value to that, but we wanted to recognize them for their contribution and thank them. The 5-year forecast is on here as well, and I think there may be some further discussion about that. And the other thing, I forgot this, I should have said this first. I had the opportunity to go to the high school and present a graduating senior with a $1,000 check at our last workshop, so that's when if anybody saw me sneak out and come back, that's where I went to give some money away. But that was just an incredibly rewarding experience to get up there and do that for a student that's going to do some amazing things. I think she's going to Ohio State University and studying finance business. So just a cool opportunity. So thank you for letting me sneak out of the workshop for a few minutes so I could go do that. So.
Okay, thank you. There are, 5 items for action under letter G, financial business. If there is not an objection to taking these items together, is there a motion to approve G6, which is approval of financial business items G1 through G5?
I would ask that we consider tabling the 5-year forecast. We have had a great discussion, new process this year, but unfortunately some of the questions weren't answered in a timely manner from Tuesday night in expectation of tonight's meeting. So I would just ask that we table that and set a special meeting up before May 31st so that we would have time to review the answers to some of the questions.
So I think you are asking to separate out item number 5. So before we do anything with item number 5, could we let's get a motion to approve items 1 through 4? Unless there are any other items that anyone wants to separate out? Okay, so is there a motion to approve items number G1 through G4?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Mooring. Is there a second? Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Any discussion or any additional discussion? We've had a lot of discussion. Any additional discussion about G1 through G4? Okay, Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Catching up here real quick, 1 second. Yep, okay. Mrs. Horn.
Yes.
Mr. Manley.
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle Antonio.
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, so now we've got item number 5, which is the 5-year forecast. I don't know procedurally, do we first need a motion to approve it and then a second motion to table it, or?
No, you could just do a motion to table it.
Okay, so I think Mrs. Horn is making a motion to table item number 5, and I don't want to speak for you, but do you want to explain it, or do you want me to try to I'm happy to summarize what I think I heard you said. Okay, so I think Mrs. Horn is asking to table item number 5 so that there were so as both Mr. Gooding and I think Mrs. Horn explained, we had a new process in place this year. At our Finance and Facility Committee meeting in April, we had an initial presentation of the 5-year forecast, and the Finance Committee Chair and Mrs. Horn, who is the second board member assigned to Finance and Facility Committee, worked with Mr. Gooding to develop a process where in April we would hear that initial presentation, we would submit questions through a Google form, and then work through answers to those questions and then come back to the discussion at Finance and Facility in May. And it sounds like, Mrs. Horn, you're asking to table because there were some questions that have not yet been answered, or maybe they have been answered, but they were only just answered, so you haven't had an opportunity to read through those answers, much less process them. Did I summarize that? Okay, so you're asking, we have a statutory deadline of May 31st, so if we table it, I assume we'll find another date in May to vote on approval of the 5-year forecast. So all that being said, is there a second to that motion? Thank you, Mrs. Mooring. Any additional discussion about that? Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
So what I just want to read what I have here for the motion, just to make sure that this is okay. Just put motion to table 5-year forecast to be approved at a later meeting to be scheduled prior to May 31st, 2023.
Yes.
Okay. We'll just, Mrs. Piccolantonio.
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring.
Yes.
Mrs. Horn.
Yes.
Mr. Manley.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, we are then on to letter H. I'm going to turn it over to our Assistant Superintendent, Mrs. Elliott.
Thank you. So a few items this evening. I'm going to start by talking about the communication survey, and I feel badly because Kara had asked about it at the board workshop, and I said I was going to give an update this evening, and I know she's not here, so hopefully she'll get a chance to watch and listen in. Oh, wonderful. So we did complete a communications survey this spring. It was a part of our community engagement and partnerships action team for our equity plan. The goal of the communication survey was just to gather general information about how often our families were hoping to be communicated with, the methods that they wanted to be communicated with, like the method of communication, and then what they want to hear from us. It was completed in 3 parts. The first part was a digital survey that went out to the whole school community. And then the second part involved paper copies being sent home to any family that we hadn't heard from yet. We did a lot of cross-checking. And then the third level was included our buildings making personal phone calls to remaining families from specifically identified groups that we sometimes don't have the opportunity to hear from as frequently. We wanted to make sure that we had a wide variety of stakeholder voices. So I just want to report on some of that data. We asked method and frequency at the teacher level, the building level or the principal level, and then the district level or superintendent level. So for the teacher level, there was a 72% response preferential for text messaging. And so I think just that ease of receiving information in their handheld devices was an interest. As far as frequency goes, 53.7% were interested in weekly, 19.5% in monthly, and 18.4% in 2 to 3 times per month. We did dig a little further to look at how does that break down, look across elementary, middle, and high school, and just highlighting the highest percentage frequency at the elementary level, 65% was weekly. At the middle school level, 43.9% weekly, and then it shifted to monthly at the high school level with 40.6% interested in monthly communication at the classroom level. If we move into the school and principal level, I should note that families have the opportunity to check multiple modes. They could pick email only, or if they want email and text. So 56.3% said email only from the building level, but 48.5% also said text. So frequency, 43.5% were interested in hearing at the building level monthly. Slightly lower at weekly was 37.5%. And then 2 to 3 times per month, 19%. Very consistently across all 3 levels, the highest interest was monthly. So right in the 40s for all 3 levels. And then at the district superintendent level, didn't have to do a lot of breakdown by level because the percentages were pretty consistent and it was pretty high. 72.2% interested in email only. 77.7% interested in monthly communication from the district level. Moving on to talk a little bit about the elementary report card review process that Mary Beth Powell talked about. We did have a couple meetings this spring. We had about 30 staff representatives from across the district at all levels come together, provide some feedback on the report card that we are currently using and have been using for the last several years. And then from that feedback, the curriculum team and our leadership teams got together to help draft some updates to our competency language. And the goal was to address some of the feedback we had been hearing from staff that over the years, the competencies on the report cards were not aligning directly to what they were teaching as curriculum maps have changed and the information they wanted to be sharing with families. So we gathered feedback a first time, curriculum team and leadership team members drafted updated language, and then we went back to the teachers for them to get their eyes on those draft competencies, gathered more feedback. And so we will be working to kind of finalize that language before sharing it out at the beginning of next school year. We also have received feedback over the years about an interest in aligning our reporting periods to the middle school and high school, so shifting from trimesters back to quarters. So that's something that we are planning to do for next school year. And then also continuing, as Mary Beth mentioned, to just look for ways to reduce the workload. Having a standards-based report card, we included comments as an important part to be giving to families. And so we kind of streamlined those expectations actually going into effect this trimester of this school year. That will continue moving forward as well. So we're very grateful to all the staff willing to participate and provide feedback. We got a lot of thumbs up last night in the meeting just based on some of the updates, so that's been a great process. I also wanted to give an update on the high school schedule focus group that occurred just a couple weeks ago. Mrs. Williams did an excellent job facilitating that meeting. She had started with surveys to students, staff, high school families, and middle school families, just to gather information about the types of experiences they wanted their students and students wanted to have related to the Bell schedule. There were 1,661 responses altogether. 932 of those were students, so that's great that the student voice was very loud. Just wanted to highlight some of the trends from those surveys. The surveys were definitely tailored specifically, so the staff questions, weren't exactly the same as the student and family questions, but all very, gathering similar information. So families and students, the trends were an interest in flexibility, an interest in opportunities to learn through chosen paths aligned to their passions and interests, more personalized learning, and then access to more electives. One additional trend from the student level was they were interested in having easy access to their personal content teachers when they needed assistance. Then at the staff level, some of the trends were interested in fewer classes for longer periods of time, seeing their students. They were open to exploring the idea of maybe seeing students every other day, interested in smaller class sizes, and interested in fewer transitions for students. So that's kind of a trend of the feedback. Well, Mrs. Williams took all that feedback, and in the focus group that included both parents and staff members, then kind of generated 5 different Bell schedule options for families and staff to look at. They were in small groups. They were able to kind of process the schedules and then provide praises, suggestions, and questions related to all of those schedules. Excellent discussion, and we had great representation. It was a beautiful night out, so not as many of the parents that had signed up to come were able to come, but we still had several parents, many staff members, and that included even kitchen staff and classified staff and certified staff. So that was nice to have feedback from all those areas. So from here, Mrs. Williams' steering team will, be reviewing the feedback and ultimately landing on kind of a recommendation for updating the Bell schedule, possibly, for the 24-25 school year. So we still have some time, but that's kind of where we are in the process. And then a partner to the high school Bell schedule update is taking a look at the school start times. And that work's going to begin this summer and will pick up again in the fall. And we're hoping to have some updates mid-year for the 24-25 school year. I think I'll stop there.
Thank you, Mrs. Elliott. Any questions? Okay. We are on letter I, Human Resources. Is there a motion to approve item number 44, which is approval of human resource items I-2 through I-43? I should have said unless there's an objection to taking them together. Thanks, Mr. Manley. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Mrs. Mooring. Any discussion about these items?
I hate it when we have retirees that have contributed so much and we know their impact on our students, but we thank all of the retirees for their service and just wish them wonderful days ahead.
And a retiree, but just want to say for Mrs. Wagner, losing her as Jefferson's principal, she actually had our youngest as her first year of being principal at Jefferson. So wish her the best, and certainly will miss having her in the building, but happy for her in the next phase.
Anything else?
Shout out to the HR department for all these hires that they have on tonight's agenda.
Very busy work out of
Right.
the HR department.
So thank you.
Thanks. Anything else? Mr. Gooden, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle Antonio,
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring, Mrs. Horn.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, we are on letter J, and I am going to turn it over to our Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Hetzel.
Evening, President Pickle Antonio and members of the board. Items you'll see on the agenda tonight will include 2 Bluebird buses that we're purchasing through the Meta Purchasing Cooperative, 78 passenger, and they're spec'd out by our mechanics team, and we're very excited to be able to bring them into our inventory. We also have the Meta renewal, and I think most are familiar with that. That is the public entity that we work through to receive a lot of our technical services and support. So our student information systems, our financial software systems, access to purchasing cooperatives like buying buses and food service, and no utilities. They do have an auditing service. So actually, yes, we do purchase through them correctly, but we work with NRG and Columbia Gas and others, but they coordinate all of that, you're right. So there's 2 schedules that you'll see on there. Nothing has changed from before. I think everybody's very pleased with the move to Infinite Campus and some of the additional modules that they provide to help us do a better job in supporting the teachers and students. As Superintendent Deagle had mentioned earlier, we also will have GMP 4.3 on there. This was done to try to hedge market inflation. Seems like weeks count, and so we were able to lock down a lot of important elements to the project. So this is the 3rd of what we're anticipating and really demanding to be our 4th step. We will have one more GMP, a 4.4. We're going to have a meeting tomorrow to discuss what's coming in on that, trying to close that out in the upcoming weeks. But for 4.3, there's focus on concrete and masonry, structural steel, some of our operable partitions and painting, kitchen equipment, bleachers, elevators, and fire protection. And those were things that we had no VE opportunities. We were kind of locked in, and we thought it would be important to try to secure that pricing right now, get everything in motion so people can order some things that have long lead times to make sure we could secure all of those resources. In addition to that, to kind of close out the school year, I was really happy to hear Mal and Jerry. They did a great job of representing their members, and they have been fantastic to work with. That helps so much in having the willingness to do whatever is necessary to get the job done to support the students. And they have that attitude, and it's a great thing. In addition to that, so when I came in, I tried to kind of walk through departments and get to know people a little bit better and understand how we do things. Earlier I had done transportation and food service, and this last month I tried to focus a little bit more on facilities and custodial, walking through some of the work order systems, identifying responsibilities, who has what and where, how they interact with our project work, and then structuring some of our response processes. So I anticipate this summer we'll have a great opportunity when things kind of settle in to begin to identify how we can continue to engage our buildings successfully, do a great job of responding to them, focus on safety, kind of warm, safe, and dry initiatives, and then stay in touch with what we're doing with our construction processes to support the buildings and the principals. Sometimes they're not always informed as to what we're doing if we make quick reactions, and I feel like if more our army of people know what's going on, it makes it a lot easier for everybody to understand where we're headed with things. Also, we are hopeful, we are looking to finalize one of our parking lot resources. So we've been evaluating, been working with Jill, Jessica, the principal at the high school, about parking lot options. Heading into this school year, we think if we can get closer to identifying a Shoal Park relationship, that will provide us with the parking spots that we need to start next school year with. We have evaluated that space and drawn it up to see if it had the capacity we needed, and we believe that it does. We've also been evaluating other kind of parking areas that includes a Mifflin Township Fire's location on down Hamilton. I think we had talked to it. I can't remember the other road. Is it Carpenter? There's an intersection there. Yes. As a resource, and we've identified what that could look like if we needed that, even if we're looking for contractor parking. And the Gahanna Community Church, we've kind of finalized an evaluation of that, and I'll be setting up a time to meet with Pastor Tar to talk about that. And then we also identified what it would look like if once we demo the maintenance and central office building and trying to maximize parking spots there. And that looked very promising. We think we can get a couple of high 100s, a couple hundred parking spots there by doing that. And so as that unfolds, we'll present that. We'll have a project schedule of all the owner responsibilities over the next 3 years that we're going to be doing this stuff at the high school. So it'll be very exciting. Also, from a property perspective, we are close to securing where Grin is located right now to support our alternative school programming. And Jill might be able to tell you a little bit more about that, but that's something that we're fortunate to be positioned to get that, and I think that'll be very supportive, and it's close to help there. And other than that, just a few more days, and yeah, that's right. Yeah, we're almost there.
A few more days for students.
Yes, yes. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Hetzel? Thank you.
Thank you.
Busy in the operations department too. Busy everywhere. If there is not an objection to taking the items under letter J together, is there a motion to approve item number 5, which is items, sorry, not I, J, J2 through J4? Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Is there a second?
I'm happy to second.
Thanks, Mr. Manley. Any additional discussion about these items? Okay, Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Piccolo-Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Motion carried.
We are on letter K, which is general business of the board. There are, under the first section, well, under letter K, there are 6 or 5 items for action. If there's not an objection to taking those items together, is there a motion to approve item number 6, which is approval of general business items K2 through K5?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Mooring. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Mrs. Horn. Any discussion about these items?
Maybe just for the record, we should share that this GMP which is a guaranteed maximum price, we tend to use acronyms and think that everybody knows what they are. So it's a guaranteed maximum price for this segment that Mr. Hetzel described, and it's for a total of $38,201,039 for those components of the new high school.
Thanks, Mrs. Mooring. Just a question. So this is where we are approving graduating class. Maybe you already said it, Dr. Deagle. What's the total number as of today?
Okay, it's 588.
588. Wow. That is a lot of a lot of diploma covers to give out. Any additional discussion about any of these items? And Dr. Deagle already noted we have, what is there, one policy that's on here for a first read. So just for anyone who isn't aware of the process that we're using this year, we are no longer having a separate policy or external policy committee meeting. There is still a policy committee that is a superintendent committee that meets to review the policies. They come to the board for a first reading in 1 month. And so if there's anyone from the community who has anything to say about any of those policies that we're reviewing, they have an opportunity when we look at them for a first read, and then the following month they come back on our agenda for a second read and a vote on approval. So there's 2 opportunities for anyone from the public to comment on policy. So there's just one this month for a first read. Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Congratulations, graduates.
I think there was actually an email from Mrs. Williams I wouldn't congratulate them yet because there's a checklist of responsibilities that they have between now and when they actually receive their diploma. So just wait. I'm pretty sure there's a rehearsal that's required. I'm guessing you'll both be there. Is there a motion to go into executive session pursuant to revised code 12122G5 for the purpose, G1 and G5. So G1 is for the purpose of discussing the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, compensation of an employee or official, or the investigation of charges or complaints. And G5 is to discuss matters required to be kept confidential by federal rules or state statutes. Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Mr. Manley. I will just note before we call the roll, oftentimes we don't take much board action. The only thing we typically do or often do after executive session is come back to adjourn the meeting, but we do have one additional item for action on the board agenda for after executive session. So you are welcome to stay here and hang out while we go into executive session. You are also more than welcome to watch, if you're interested in that vote, you are more than welcome. We will continue streaming, including the board action that takes place after executive session. Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Horn? Yes. Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Motion carried.
It is 8:18. We'll take just a short recess and then we will reconvene in executive session.
Okay, how come it kicked me out?
You're in, but you need to mute it.
Mm-mm.
Oh, I have to join.
Well, let's mute it. Oh, that doesn't.
Won't let me start my video.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay. It is, you gotta mute. Everyone. Let's try again. It is 10:07 PM. We got it. And we are out of executive session. There is one item left on our agenda, and that is under letter M, general business of the board. Is there a motion to table item number 1 under letter M?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Manley. Any discussion about that? Okay, Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mr. Antonio?
Yes.
Motion carried.
And is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Mr. Manley. Any discussion about that? Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll one more time?
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mrs. Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Motion carried.
It is 10:08 PM and we're adjourned.